Hi everybody, it's David Porter, and today I want to talk about alcohol. That is ethanol, aka ethyl alcohol, aka drinking alcohol. You will very often see alcohol spelled by professionals as capital E, capital T, capital O, capital H, or sometimes capital E, lowercase t, capital O, capital H. That is ethyl, hydrogen, oxygen. There are different types of alcohol, and ethanol is what's typically referred to when we're talking about alcohol in the context of use, misuse, abuse, and dependence. So what exactly is ethanol? Ethanol is a molecule which increases the levels of GABA in the brain. GABA, G-A-B-A, gamma-aminobutyric acid. Nobody says gamma-aminobutyric acid. It's just easier to say GABA. It increases GABA. And here's an easy way to remember what's going on in the brain when you drink alcohol. When GABA is up, you are down. When GABA is up, you are down. Increased GABA levels are associated with lethargy, drowsiness, sedation, anxiolysis, which is reduction of anxiety, hypnosis, which in this context is sleep induction, also muscle relaxation, and disinhibition. That is, it shuts off the right frontal lobe, so you become more impulsive and reckless and indifferent in your words and actions. So where does ethanol come from? Ethanol can come from two primary sources or methods of production. One is naturally occurring, it's fermentation. Fruits, vegetables, grains, basically any food product containing complex or simple carbohydrates can be fermented. Fermentation is a naturally occurring process by which bacteria chew on the simple carbohydrates, and very often as fruits, vegetables, grains break down, the complex carbohydrates or starches are converted into simple carbohydrates. So the simple carbohydrates or simple sugars are acted on by bacteria, and the bacteria produce two main byproducts, carbon dioxide and ethanol. Now, the process of fermentation can be hastened and refined. I have a train whistle for competition here. Hopefully you can still hear me. Very inconsiderate for that train to be going by when I'm trying to make a video. Anyhow, fermentation can be hastened and refined by the introduction of a catalyst, and this catalyst is yeast. Fermentation is used in the manufacture of cider, wine, and of course beer, and also a beverage is not as well known, mead, which is fermented honey. Beer is made from fermented grains, barley, wheat, oats, corn, sorghum. Wine is made from fermented grapes, and there are multiple varieties. Now, a wine lover will say if wine is not made with grapes, it's not wine. There are, however, numerous fruit wines made from blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, pears, apples. Also, things like dandelions, flowers. So you have cider, which is typically made from pomaceous fruits, that is, fruits with a big seed or seed cluster in the center. And typically cider is going to be made from apples or pears, and different flavors can be introduced like raspberry or cherry. And then you have mead, which is made from fermented honey. Now, with fermentation, you generally speaking can't get a beverage stronger than 18% alcohol, and that's about the max. Now, there are hybrid super yeasts being genetically engineered, which can produce higher amounts of alcohol into the 20s. I can't remember, mid to high 20s, maybe even a little more. And here's why. Here's, generally speaking, why you can't make a fermented beverage stronger than 18%. You're going to reach a point of equilibrium where the amount of alcohol in the beverage is going to start killing the bacteria which are making the alcohol. So you're going to reach a point of equilibrium where about 18% is a maximum. Now let's say you want a stronger beverage, you want a beverage with a higher alcohol content than 18%. Then you need to resort to distillation. Distillation, it involves taking the products of fermentation. Once again, in the case of distillation, it's most likely going to be grains. It can also be vegetables like potatoes for making vodka. It can be any combination of barley, corn, rye, wheat. It can be fruits in the case of making brandy, such as, again, grapes or apples. You are going to allow the fruits or grains, which is called a mash, to ferment. And the fermented liquid is called vert, W-O-R-T. The mash, the vert, is going to be brought to a boil. Water boils and starts evaporating at 212 degrees Fahrenheit. Alcohol starts evaporating at 141 degrees Fahrenheit. So what's going to happen as the mash is boiled, as the vert is boiled, is you are going to siphon off the first steam. That's going to be the alcohol, and then it goes through a series of coils which are immersed in cold water. This is called a condenser, which is going to cool that steam down and turn it back into a liquid. That is going to be about 99% pure ethanol. It won't stay in that pure form for long because alcohol is hydrophilic. Ethanol is hydrophilic. It's going to draw water right out of the atmosphere, right out of the surrounding, right out of the air, and immediately start diluting. The distiller, the master distiller, is not going to be selling his customers pure alcohol, with very rare exceptions such as Everclear, and there's another one out there. Basically, these are bottles of pure as you can get ethanol. Typically, the distillant emerging right from the still, the first part coming out is not drinkable. It's going to be discarded. That's called the head. The last part coming out is called the tail. That's not drinkable. That's going to be discarded. The distiller is looking for the heart. That is the best quality ethanol in between the head and the tail. That ethanol is going to be captured and mixed with very high quality, clean, pure water to reduce the proof, which is the purity of the alcohol. It's then typically going to be put into barrels and stored for anywhere from 3 years up to 30 years, depending on what type of product you're making. And in the barrel, in the wintertime, the wood will contract. In the summertime, the wood will swell. And this action will cause some of the alcohol to seep into the wood of the barrel and then basically reintegrate into the rest of the product. And this is part of what gives different distilled spirits, or that was redundant, different spirits their unique flavor and aroma profiles. And again, in the case of something very rare, like a 30-year-old Scotch whiskey, they might sit in the barrel for 30 years. Generally speaking, it's got to sit in the barrel for at least 3 years, or you're not going to have a high-quality product. So